Hello, folks. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is our second Disrupting with Purpose of the year. Welcome, welcome. Thank you guys all for coming today. My name is Natasha Loya. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Youth Leadership Coordinator here at Youth Prize. I have the blessed fortune of working with some of the young people who are going to be panelists today. Um, the topic of today's Disrupting with Purpose is a history of trauma to legacy healing. So this event is super consistent with Youth Prize's priority area of promoting healing through health and safety, and also just hearing from young voices. As always, young people are centered in the event. They provided the input that created the topic for us and the questions today, and also they are our main panelists. I also have the fortune of introducing Lissa Jones, who is the host of the Black Market Reads podcast, former content creator and host of the Urban Agenda on KMOJ Radio for 14 years, and currently the culture coach and intern leader at Juxtaposition Arts. We are so fortunate to have had her here since the beginning. Thank you so much, Lissa.
Oh, I'm so happy to be back. Thank you so much, Latasha. I'm so glad to see you. Thank you very much. I'm Lissa Jones. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm delighted to introduce our next speaker. Kamisha Johnson is an LGSW. She's a healing enthusiast with Amani Healing Services. She's going to bring us some framing for the day, helping us to understand the road from trauma to healing. Welcome, Kamisha.
Peace and thank you, Lissa. I appreciate you. Hello, young folks. Peace, love, and healing. I am so honored to be here with you guys today. You guys could have been anywhere this afternoon, but you decided to be here, showing up for young folks. So I salute you, I value you, and I see you. Today we are going to be talking about the hard stuff, like what it says is the history of trauma to the legacy of healing. I think that is so important and that's so heavy to carry. What we're going to be focusing on today is what has happened and taken place in the city of Minneapolis within the last 5 years. Um, from you guys having to deal with the pandemic, which was a whole new area, new terrain for all of us, but specifically young folks having to get education on a screen was very challenging. But then we had the uprising, we had everything that took place with the horrible events that took place with Brother George Floyd. And so all of you young folks have been affected by that. And not only have you been affected by it emotionally and physically, it's also been your mental health. It's also been your central nervous systems being very hypervigilant because of what took place. And a lot of times, young folks are silenced. They don't have a safe place or a sacred place to say what they are feeling and what they are experiencing, especially racial injustices that happen in systems. So this is our time for us to share space, a sacred space for you guys to connect and have dialogue with the generations before you. It is important and valuable for us also to learn from you. We are not the experts because we are adults, okay? We are humans having an experience just like you guys. And so we learn from each other. It is righteous reciprocity. So I am just honored for us to share space and talk about what has taken place within the last 5 years here.
I just learned a new phrase, righteous reciprocity. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. That is so exciting. I'm really looking forward to this next piece. Thank you so much, Kamisha.
Yes, my pleasure.
Thank you. Now we're going to do what Youth Prize does best, and we're going to center on youth leaders and youth voices who can help us understand the past, the present, and the future. So I'm very excited to bring our three panelists forward. In our first conversation, we're going to focus on systemic factors, things that are related to what has happened in the last 5 years. Emmett Dysart, Sydney Oundo, and Janessa Victoria are our panelists. Welcome.
Hey
Thank you.
everyone.
Glad to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi,
I'm delighted to
y'all.
see all of you. Welcome. Is it all right if we jump right in so we can hear most from you? Okay. Whoever would like to take this first question, please feel free, and then we'll kind of work it together from there. How would you say that incidents of racial injustice in Minnesota over the last 5 years impacted your personal sense of safety and belonging in your community? Sydney, are you going to take it for us?
Yeah, I would be happy to. So, I think that there's been a significant push for communities to unite, specifically following the murder of George Floyd. For many people, including myself, we realize that law enforcement ultimately provides a false sense of safety to BIPOC communities. A lot of the times, really, it's an illusion of safety because we find many BIPOC communities crawling with police, but it doesn't make them any safer. Especially whenever young people have targets on their backs. Recent media coverage of injustices have really made young people feel like we know so much more about what's going on. We're so much more informed, which has made the severity of the situation come to light so much more for young people, which has created a large community and movement that a lot of young people didn't even know about prior to the murder of George Floyd.
Thank you. Janessa, you seem to be vibing.
Yeah, I'm listening to what Sydney says. I agree with as far as like social media exposing more of what's happening. For me, I grew up in a deaf household, and so that was the primary oppression that we focused on. So race, I grew up in a white community, and race was very much just a stereotype. Like people would say, like, don't mess with Nessa, she's Black and she'll kick your ass. That's something that somebody said. So I understood race in terms of behaviors and stereotypes growing up until um, it wasn't actually George Floyd, it was Trayvon Martin that made me kind of realize that race is a serious issue versus how unserious we treated it in my community as just stereotypes. And so it really brought attention to the systemic parts of racism and just the deepness of how critical it is in our society.
Going back to Trayvon Martin is going back, and I think even for my generation, we're still crying for Emmett Till.
Right.
You know, yeah, Emmett.
And wonderful answers. Thank you both. How I'd answer this question, I'd say that like every day, living in America as a Black person, as a person of color, I when thinking about my sense of belonging and my identity and my safety, it's impacted. And what I mean by that is that the U.S. government does not care about accountability for what they do and what they've continued to do. I know I'm light bright, but like, don't get it wrong. Like, I'll go up in boardrooms still and get treated like the quota, right? And so knowing that, I'm speaking for the diaspora, I think that if America truly did care about my sense of belonging, well-being and safety, they would put their money on the table, and we would start having conversations about reparations, and we wouldn't just stop there either. We would put that into action, and there's some places around the nation that are starting that, and that's beautiful and great, but it's long overdue. When I think about the Japanese population that we put into concentration camps, or folks that are indigenous, the list goes on, right? And there's so many different forms of reparations, but still, Black people, we're left out. We're not in the conversation. We're not even given an apology from our own government for the last 400 years. So I think that the lack of accountability is truly what's fueling the economic segregation within our perception of what racial injustice means, at least here in Minnesota. And I'd be wrong to not mention the officer who was just killed, a block away from my house. And I don't know all the details about that, if it was racially fueled, but just to think about that, and then also thinking about the prosecutor who recently dropped these charges against the state trooper who now left Ricky Cobb and his family completely off the hook when it comes to justice. It really just makes me think about this whole idea of racial injustice in my sense of belonging, and they're not aligned with where they should be.
Thank you all. Dr. King is often quoted, but not really about the things that he was saying contextually. In a threat to justice anywhere, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So like no one is safe. So given the experiences that you've had, what do you think adults can do differently?
I think that's a really deep question, which feels very surface level, but I think ultimately, just feeling as a young organizer, I'm 17 years old and I consistently find myself being the youngest person in a room. Like, and it draws a lot of attention because most young people don't care about political things that are going on. Most young people are not. As far as the Ricky Cobb family is concerned, I was just there yesterday and today for the press conferences to see that in real time, how they're feeling, how they felt ostracized, how like seeing that in real time is impactful. And a lot of the times I feel like young people feel feel that same feeling of being an outsider in things like policy or in the movement because it's lots of adults. So I think just creating things like this where we're centering youth voice, and pulling up a chair to the table, creating that spot for youth to feel like their input is just as important as the next person's, because we're impacted just as equally.
I appreciate that, Sydney. And later I want to know what's a better question.
Just to piggyback off of that thought, Sydney, I'd like to also add that like when we're boots on the ground, creating those spaces like there, not just like one off, some at some other point, but actually raising and uplifting youth in the present moment. That is what I think and believe creates leaders. And I'm so glad to hear that you were able to attend that as well. It's good to know that young people were there.
I just kind of was thinking about what both of you are saying, and it sounds like just people who are in positions of power using their power to support those who aren't or who may have less power, young people, obviously. And so I think what Emmett and Sydney were both saying, creating spaces for that to happen, and also resources. I don't have any specifically, but there's so many resources that I've just recently learned about that are out there that I don't think young people even know are available, let alone have access to. And so I think resources and spreading your power, sharing power is really important.
This is excellent. Thank you. I'm showing you my pencil only so you know I'm not texting or talking to anybody. I'm paying strict attention and just taking notes the old-fashioned way. So there you go. There you go. I was thinking about it. People want to ask the question sort of, what do you believe individuals and communities can do, like to hold institutions accountable for promoting healing and for stopping systemic trauma? Do you think that individuals and communities can do that?
Yeah, I could start off with this one. I'll be concise. I truly believe that what individuals can do from just to hold institutions accountable would be to start with informing themselves. There's so much information out there and it's easy to mix it all up. So when we all put this energy that we have that we don't have words for on paper, and we start being strategic and mobilizing and organizing in ways that truly are impactful, I believe that that's where like real change can happen. It's been a common theme in my family, at least, to misdiagnose kids with maybe anxiety or depression or some kind of ADHD disorder. And when in reality, it's just pent up trauma that never got dealt with. So being able to get the information and then be on the same page with our peers is what I feel like we can do to start that holding institutions accountable, and then empowering the youth to get into different rooms that they might not be in, like the Senate chambers or a news station, just places that are going to give power back to the communities, so like boardrooms. We could get boardrooms or people that are at these Fortune 500 companies a chance to give to community in a way that they haven't before.
Thank you. And sort of adding to the question, are there movements, are there youth-led opportunities and things that are happening to make a change here that we want to tell people about?
Yeah, I think ultimately, just to answer, I'll answer your first question and then your second question. I think for just holding institutions accountable and promoting healing in community, really just unity outstands all other remedies, in my opinion. Coming together and through our shared trauma and our experiences has proven to be one of the most impactful things I think that we can do as a community. And whenever we take that momentum at unified two institutions to tell them about our issues, our problems, our whatever you want to call it, there's a significant power in numbers. So to youth that are looking for those things and that healing, I would say first start small, like join your clubs, join your organizations at your school, join other like-minded things. In your communities, join activism groups. There's so many different young. I was part of Minnesota Teen Activists, which was one of the biggest youth organizations, to just be around like-minded people that care about the same things that I do. And I think really just getting to know your neighbors, getting to know the people around you, who do you surround yourself with, who's in your community, because I feel like modern times have really kind of isolated us in a lot of ways where we don't even know our neighbors anymore. We don't even have that sense of community anymore. And I think that will prove to be extremely healing. And then once we're able to unify and bring that forth to oppressive natures, that you can't fight hundreds of thousands of people, you can't. So I think that once we unify, that will prove to be extremely effective.
I kind of approach this question a little bit differently. So first, I'll just second what Sydney and Emmett said as far as what individuals can do and what youth can do. I agree with unity. I agree with coming together and being educated. But what I thought is I went to North High School, and that's where I received a lot of my education about racism in general and about it being systemic and how institutions are involved in it. And I would argue that a lot of people or a lot of youth don't even know that they are being institutionally oppressed. And so when I thought about this question, I thought about how do we even motivate youth to be empowered? And I think reparations is a huge part of that. So my idea is, how can we pay young people to do their own healing? How can we pay or create a space for young people to be invested in this? Because healing themselves is going to be what heals the community. We are the community. So that's my first idea. And then my second thought is I'm kind of radical. So I'm why even hold these institutions accountable? Let's shut them down. I think when I think about healing, I think about root causes and what's at the root of these things. And I think racism is at the root of a lot of these institutions. So why try to correct something where racism is part of what it is? Even, if you think about education, housing, certain things like that, I think oppression and racism is at the foundation of it. So I think tear it down and build something new up, create spaces for that to happen. And that's obviously a radical, huge idea, but that's how I think about things in terms of healing.
This is what I'm talking about. I can't stop smiling. I keep seeing myself, my teeth. I'm like, why do I keep seeing my teeth? You are all just, I'm picking up what you're laying down. Thank you very much. We're going to come back to you shortly for more wisdom. And I want to just say thank you. Take a little break, get some water, because you've been dropping bombs of information in a good way. So we'll see you again in a couple minutes, okay? Thank you. This is priceless. Thank you, Youth Prize. I now have the privilege of introducing two adult panelists who will share their perspectives on what the young people had to offer us. Ayinga Okamba and Dr. Mark Sander, welcome. Welcome to the conversation. I'm so glad you're here. May we start with you, Ayinga?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. And I'm so honored to be part of this conversation. I posted on my LinkedIn that I was going to be sharing space with brilliant people. And I definitely feel like I am learning and I am growing and I am stretching in this conversation. And I support 1,000% many of the ideas that have been voiced thus far by our youth leaders. I want to especially lean into this idea of neighbors. With question 3, Sydney shared with us some wisdoms around finding like-minded people, getting to know your neighbors, thinking about how in modern times we are quite isolated. And I wanted to just really lift that up as an incredible strategy for all of us. One of the things that is fascinating to me is that I can walk into a situation, whether it's a shopping mall or maybe even in my own family, and never be asked the question, so what do you think, right? How do we ask each other that question? What do you think? How are you experiencing this? And by way of context and in agreement with a lot of what has been shared, I am serving as the director of the Minnesota Institute for Trauma-Informed Education based at the University of St. Thomas. And I've been in this role for a year and just celebrated my 1-year anniversary, which is awesome. Thank you. And I'm so honored to be in this role because I am bringing all of my identities to this role, one of which is being a resident of South Minneapolis, Powderhorn Park. Powderhorn, go Powderhorn. And having the distinct honor of being in community over the past 5 years and working with my neighbors to really save our neighborhood. We had a period of time when white supremacists were coming through and leaving things that could be burned, trying to sort of burn a grid all across Minneapolis, et cetera. And we would have to walk up and down the alleys looking in each other's yards and hosing down each other's fences and things so that if things burned, they wouldn't burn very far, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this went on for a very long time, as we all know. And one of the things that saved me during that time was exactly what Sydney pointed out so wisely, which is to really be asking questions of my neighbors, to really ask them how they were experiencing things. And then in general, to be asking everyone, but especially young people, what do you need? What do you need? What do you need? And regardless of how someone is presenting, to still ask the question many times a day. And I did that a lot in my role as a principal during the pandemic. I taught myself how to look beyond the presentation and to really make myself available as an adult who was ready to have a trauma-informed conversation, was ready to acknowledge the collective trauma that people were experiencing, and then to change that trajectory so that the trauma did not interrupt future successes or happiness or joy or the potential for any of those things. So I have so many more things to say about other comments, but I'll stop there. I want to share the stage with my fellow respondent, please. Thank you so much.
You are kind, and while you're telling a difficult story, your smile makes it easier to listen and understand. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome, Mark.
Hey, thank you. Like, I'm like blown away with what the youth respondent said. Like, I feel like very humbled. Like, um, uh, their ideas were amazing. Um, so I think for me, what I think about this as, again, there's so many layers, but I'm gonna like just talk about two. One is how do we, what I heard in this first part of the talk is how do we find, ways to get youth more involved in decision making kind of spaces, right? So again, like, and I think I'll say again, I wear many hats, but in Hennepin County, we really want that. Um, we're I'm not going to own that we're doing it great. We're we're trying to figure it out, but like we really want youth to be in decision making, spaces. So that's one. Two, I think about Ann Maston. So I don't know if people know Ann Maston. She was a professor at the University of Minnesota, studied resiliency, and her big thing was it's ordinary magic. And so when we think about resiliency, sometimes we think it's like some big moment. And at least what I took away from what Anne said was it's not one moment. It's every moment, like what are you doing every day to create a safe space? So my daughters, so I've got three girls, they're 19, 17, 13. They all have the same kindergarten teacher. And every morning she would say, would you like a hug, a handshake, or high five as they walked in? That builds resilience for kids. Like they know it. When I got to walk my daughters to school, she would ask me that question. I know it was coming, and some days I needed her to ask me that question because I'm like, oh, this like what a great way to start the day, right? I'm getting a hug, whatever I need, like, and this person just said, "What do you need?" And so, like, how do we create our spaces to say, "What do you need?" Um, right? And it can just be a hug, a handshake, or high five. And you know what? That means something. Because I had a buddy who teaches social work in the school district, and he's like, "Hey, I got, he got that like phone call from a former student that we all hope to get. Hey, I'm doing great. Like, you had a huge impact on my life. I just graduated college, I got a job, all these things." I'm like, I coach hockey, so he's a hockey buddy. So he's like, "I feel so bad." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "I have no idea who this kid is." He had to go look up on the yearbook to find out who he was. He's like, "Oh well, I just hung out with him. Like we would, I'd help him with the schoolwork sometimes. We played cards. Sometimes we just talked." I'm like, so that's the thing as we talk about repair. I just don't want us to miss that there are these small, recurrent, like reciprocal moments of like this how you show up makes a difference, and sometimes you don't know.
Thank you. I hear presence and checking with your neighbors and being a good neighbor and checking in. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. And now we're going to make another transition. One of the things I'd like to ask you to think about when we come back is, since we do have the money and the power and the resources, why do we keep saying we need to do this and why don't we do it? Okay, just wondering. Thank you, team. All right, segueing back, if we can for just a moment. Thank you. Forgive me, team. Sometimes I get more involved. All right, welcome back now to our youth panelists. If you don't mind, please join me again. Emmett, Sydney, and Janessa, here they come. Brilliance extraordinaire. This time, we're going to talk again, or I should say, we're going to listen again to hear from them about generational and cultural factors and their impact. Team, if it's okay, can we do it the same way we did it last time? You just take the lead, I'll lay it down, and you pick it up? It's a done deal. Let's go. Please share any examples of adversity or traumas from previous generations which you believe still impact the youth today. They can be experiences that are cultural, familial, societal, social, whatever you like. What kind of intergenerational trauma do you think has been transferred?
I can start this one. So when I first read this question, my mind instantly went to the light skin, dark skin, kind of, I don't know, tug of war and being biracial and a light skinned person. Um, I grew up in Maple Grove, a predominantly white area. Then I moved to the north side of Minneapolis, predominantly black area. And when I first heard it, I thought it was new, like hashtag team light skin, hashtag team dark skin. And then I took an African American history class and learned that that was something that was set. Colorism is the term. Yeah. So that was something that was set back before like Jim Crow days. And so like hearing that as something that is still involved in our community, I was like, wow, we haven't grown for this. And even though it can often be played off as like a playful thing, it really does impact our communities. There really are ways that light skinned people have advantages over dark skinned people. There really are ways that we, especially I think women, light skinned women and dark skinned women, there's a huge like thing there that I feel like if we would just all recognize that we're Black, I identify as a biracial Black woman, still Black. And so I think that creates a lot of division in our community, unnecessarily so. And that was set for it to be that way 300-400 plus years ago.
Thinking about those last sentiments you said about 300-400 years ago, like Willie Lynch just came to mind, you know, and being able to recognize that the power
That's what it
of
is.
history of history and how important it is to recognize history because it will repeat itself if you aren't privy to it. When I had read this question originally, the phrase that came to mind was, you don't know what you don't know. And so I want to take an approach at it from a societal standpoint. And when I think about society as a whole and the way it's been impacted, I think the food, right, that we've been conditioned to eat and accept as food, the water conditions, we look at Flint, it's still messed up. Nothing's really changed. They just don't put media coverage on it as much. There's so much pollution in our air. They're finding microplastics and glycer. I forget the preservative, but it's in our air that we're breathing in. And like these are the building blocks to life, right? Food, air, and water. And these things that are continuing to be created, like new. This is a new plastic, a new type of plastic. Like we're addicted to all of these things that we don't even realize aren't for us. And so I want to I want to, but I do stress the importance of unlearning the things that we've been taught to accept as normal and uncondition ourselves from this colonized mindset that we were born into.
Yeah, absolutely. What both of y'all are talking about. I think I would like to put a different spin on this question actually, because I think at least the one that hits home for me the most is mass incarceration. The mass incarceration epidemic has literally crumbled communities of color, including myself. I have a stepdad who's incarcerated. people in my immediate family have been incarcerated, aunts, uncles. There's so many people who I know who are close to me, friends who are like, feel like every other week I'm hearing somebody else is getting out of jail or prison or something like that. And for the family dynamic specifically for me, it's like there's an empty seat at my dinner table. There's my mom is struggling to pay rent or support us because she doesn't have that additional man. Like, not that she needs a man, but I'm saying that additional family factor has been stolen. And I think that many young people ultimately feel like their freedom has also been taken through that, feeling like they have to have a swivel, their heads on a swivel, because of that generational trauma that has been passed on to us. I feel like every time I'm on the phone with my stepdad, he's like, "Don't go to prison. Do not do what I did. You need to make sure that you're being vigilant. You need to make sure that you're following all the laws and listening to the police and all those things." So now it's like whenever I come in contact, or whenever I think about my younger brother coming into contact with law enforcement, there's additional weight that I'm carrying that's not even mine. And I feel like that really takes away from kids just being kids. Kids should just be kids. I shouldn't have to worry about why that seat is empty. I shouldn't have to worry about why I'm nervous whenever I go into a corner store. And I think that it's really just taken away adolescence from communities of color specifically. And we don't even have to get into the school to prison pipeline because we go there. But it's like just I think specifically with that, the family dynamic has been stolen from kids through the mass incarceration epidemic that we're facing in America. And frankly, whenever we think about it, it kind of goes back to what I was talking about with that illusion of safety. Locking people up doesn't make our communities any safer because it doesn't teach them how to re-enter society and be better humans. So I just kind of want to leave y'all with that. I could get into my abolition. I
If I could hop in real quick.
Please.
If I could just hop in real quick, Sydney, because I'm over here like a bobblehead, like to everything you're saying. And this is just like my little brother was recently arrested yesterday because he challenged authority. And this happened in New Jersey. My family just moved back from here from there. But what you're saying is so on point because about stealing adolescence, because my sister and I were having a conversation and she was like, well, Kevin gets mouthy with the police and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but like, if they're coming at him some type of way, there's going to be human reactions to that. So it's not only stealing adolescence, it's stealing humanity. Like, we have to control our emotions to make sure that we are not putting ourselves in danger with people that are threatening to us. And I think that speaks volumes. And I also want to say to the question, just in general, there are plenty of things beyond what we're saying, mass incarceration, and there are plenty traumas that we are still suffering from. And I think we could have endless conversations about that. Even within mass incarcerations, there's endless trauma discussions that we can have within just that one topic. So I just wanted to highlight that what Sydney's saying, I just wanted to piggyback off of that because that's really relevant to my life right now. And also just to highlight that there are so many traumas that, yeah, y'all get it.
First of all, let me say thank you. And just because our audience may not understand intergenerational, really, I'm 55 years old and my experience is like yours, Sydney, and like yours, Janessa, and like yours, Emmett. So like my grandmother and my grandmother's grandmother, and it was like that for them too. So what do we do? How do we get the adults, the elders, to use their resources to do something about helping us to heal? What do? We done messed it up. I'm not sure we can clean it up. So maybe you can help us out.
I think it would be important to have an open mind, starting there, right? Because there's so many things that can be brought to the table that might be off the wall when you look at it initially, and in reality, that might be the very solution that one might need. So having an open mind, and that's on both ends, not just youth going to elders, but then also elders coming to youth. If youth were to have an open mind as well for what could be done and what could be envisioned for change. There's so many different practices, mindfulness, restorative justice, transformational justice, indigenous circles, circle keeping that come to mind. But I'm sure there's a million different other ideas as well.
Yeah, so Emmett, I'm right there with you. As far as restorative, I'm a restorative practice warrior. Like that's what I fight for every single day because that's really the key to freeing our future. Um, I think whenever it comes to having elders help us heal this, is just allowing youth to fail forward. To letting them know that their power is limitless and that they have no bounds. They're not tied down to anything that will not let them fly. Because I feel like so many times, a lot of that trauma, it kind of goes back to what I was saying. I feel like I'm holding so much on my shoulders that's not mine to carry anymore. And it's my job to let that go and allow myself to take off. Um, and I think giving people, young people specifically, the freedom to explore, knowing that elders are going to have their backs regardless of the decisions that they're making. It's kind of like I was having this conversation with my mom the other day because moms just they know everything, and I was just having some talks with my mom, and I was like, Mom, why did this happen to me? And she was like, I told you that was going to happen to you, but I let you do it, and now I'm here and I'm gonna hug you and I'm gonna love you and I'm gonna talk you through it because I wish you would listen, but you didn't. And here we are, and I'm still gonna receive you with open arms because that's what it should be. She allowed me to fail forward and know that now I made that decision. It didn't work out, but I still have support. I still have people who are here to welcome me with a wealth of knowledge and to continue to just feed into me with their wisdom to make my life prosperous. And I think that us thriving ultimately provides healing to them. That us being able to fly really gives them their wings that was stolen from them in a lot of ways. Um, so yeah, I think I'll stop there.
I love it. Thank you. When it comes to your cultural identities, however you identify, how can elders and people who are older than you help you in that journey, help you in your discoveries? And how can we help you with your trauma by understanding your culture or your cultures?
I'll start with this one. So I just kind of started thinking about just generational trauma in general. And something Sydney said actually about how we have this weight on us that isn't necessarily ours to carry, but we're still holding it, right? So I think about my future children and the possibility of passing that down as well, and all the traumas that we hold in our bodies from past generations. And I think some of us don't really understand where that comes from, especially like within your own household. Some people don't have, like, I don't have my dad to ask him what happened to his family and ask my grandma those stories. So I think I would love if we just had like spaces of communication and storytelling. And I think that would help us have a better understanding of where we come from and why we feel the ways that we feel, even when we are being successful. Like Sydney said, having a space to fall forward, um, having a space to expect young people as well to do well and to do better. Than I think there's this like narrative that young people are irresponsible, that young people don't understand necessarily certain things. And so if we put more trust into youth, I think, to have these conversations, to you know, go back and forth with elders and do storytelling and be open-minded. And I think that's what Emmett was saying as well. Older and younger people being open-minded to these conversations and to the ability that young people do have. I think that sometimes gets downplayed. And so I forgot the question a little bit and what I was saying. I'm gonna end it there.
You didn't forget anything. You did beautifully. Team, how can elders help you better use your cultural identity to fight back?
I think Janessa was right on the point with that one. When she had said storytelling, we have access to older people, you know, and being able to tap into different senior citizen homes, maybe if our grandparents aren't with us anymore, and just spend time with them. Like volunteering is something that I used to do at old folks homes, right? That's what I would call them. And I'd get so much wisdom from them. I really do feel like it can fill you up. Keeping that tradition alive of oral storytelling, and then also like as a follower of Christ, like whenever I look and read the Bible and see whenever Jesus spoke, it was always in metaphors, and being able to know that we can create metaphors too. We can use our imagination and help others. We don't have to just sit here and rely on things that have come in the past, but we can remain in the present and birth these new stories as well. Part of that is just being the captain of our own shit.
James Baldwin said language can invent anything. So you can do whatever you want to do and make up whatever you want to make up. I'm very, very grateful. We're going to come back to you for some wisdom, let you get some water, you know, let us try to digest, hear from a couple other people, and then will you come back? Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Sydney, Janessa, Emmett. Thank you so much. And now let's welcome back, please, Mark and Ayinga and Kamisha. We'd like to get your thoughts, if you don't mind, on what the panelists had to share with us. There was a lot there, so I'm going to mute my mic and let you three take it away.
Wow, where to start? I am so excited about everything that Janisha said, Sydney and Emmett. Yes to storytelling, please. I want to just applaud that. And I want to say, as a person who is in a position of institutional power, I am doing every single thing I can in my waking and sleeping hours to introduce the arts and storytelling and that intercultural and intergenerational exchange. I'm a visual artist myself, and I have a gallery, and I use that space to invite that intergenerational conversation. And I'm my main not so secret agenda in every room I'm in is to introduce not only my story, but the story of everyone around me, and to ask questions, to be able to say, for us to recognize when we're in that space together, if there's folks we haven't heard from. And a lot of that time that happens, it's the folks who are not at the formal table. And so I try to do a little trick, which I'm just going to share here because I know y'all do it too, which is just to break apart the formal table. Just break it, just like disregard it, just to open it up, to have people actually come and sit and stand and be and have the right to speak at formal meetings, at informal meetings, in spaces that we may control, in our positions of power in our institutions and in our positions of power in the community. So I'm really in favor of that. I love this idea of focusing on mindfulness practice and restorative justice, and sometimes the combination of those two things. And I feel like all of us are working on this idea of freedom and how best to represent it, right? In 2018, before a lot of things happened, I did a show in New York, and I wanted it to be a question. And the show was called, "What Will I Do with All This Freedom?" And the show was really about like agency, right? At that moment, we had a president who had a deep disregard for freedoms of speech and all kinds of freedoms. And I just felt like it was important as an artist to put my voice out there as a question that reminded all of us that we actually possess the freedom, which is why incarceration and slavery and all of those things are such abuses of power, because humans are born free. Humans are free. And so how do we continue to like express that and insist upon it in all of the spaces that we're in? I have many more things, but I would love to hear what everyone else has to say as well. So thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you for your grace. Kamisha, would you like to go next? It seems like you might be ready.
Yes, I can go next. Sydney, Emmett, and Janessa. I mean, I am blown away. I love being student. I like just absorbing your wisdom because you guys are wise beyond your years, and I'm in heaven. Okay. So I'm just allowing you, please marvel in this moment. Allow us adults that are here on here. I'm sorry if I'm being a little off, I'm a little radical, but I just have to give them. I have to give them their flowers. I want them to hear, I see you, I value you. And I mean, everything you said is something that I want to later meditate, pray, and reflect on because what you don't, I too am a therapist by education. But I'm a conduit of healing for my community. They call me a hood healer, a hope dealer. And I speak to youth all the time. That is my passion. That's a part of my life work and mental health. So hearing you guys and hearing the wisdom in you all is just bringing me, I am just like excited. Like I want to let's go to lunch. But things that I thought was amazing. Sydney said it best. I'm a restorative practice warrior. Yes. That is something that I value. And I see it so often in marginalized communities because we are so hyper vigilant. Our central nervous systems are always hijacked. We do need so much mindfulness. We need times for reprieve. We need times to get present in our bodies and not be off in the galaxies or worried about what's going on always around us. So I'm so happy you have that in your wellness Rolodex. So I heard that loud and clear. I don't want to confuse this. I don't remember if Sydney or Janessa said it, but somebody said investing in young folks healing. So young folks being in, like paying them to heal. I thought that spoke volume. And the reason being because if you do something wrong, the school to prison pipeline, that is real. I also work with young ladies that are on probation. And so they're paying restitution. They're doing all the things because they did something that they had to do to survive, right? But for somebody, for adults and healers or community leaders and members to invest in their healing, I think you're onto something with that. And I think that further exploration there, indeed. Janessa or Sydney for sure said that she said it's just not my job to carry some of this stuff no more. I say that so often in healing circles and restorative circles. I tell people, clients, community members, people I love in my tribe, listen, that's not yours to carry. It is okay to put that down. So I am so happy to hear that you are already practicing that. I am a person, I come from a long lineage of matriarch women who carried a lot of family folks on their back, and it showed. They died young, they had diabetes, they had hypertension. They didn't have there wasn't longevity in their life, and it was because all the emotional stuff, all the disease that was all emotional distress that was not resolved, it showed up in their bodies, it showed up in their avatar, and they didn't have nowhere to put it. And so I am like a trailblazer, and hey, if that's not mine to carry, I'm not picking it up. So I salute you. I see y'all, Emmett King, I see you, and I'm just so happy and honored to be here. Thank y'all for having me.
Now that's a word. Thank you. And Mark, welcome. I feel you may be muted.
Yep, now I'm muted. So, which is probably good because I have no idea what to say. Like, I'm like blown away with this conversation. So I'm like, after the youth and both of you, I'm like, I don't know what else to add in. I guess for me, what I want to lean in, I want to name who I am. I'm a 52-year-old white guy that's on this conversation, and I feel blessed to be here. And I want to like, what can I do? Right? I want to own like, I'm blown away by the conversation. I'm blown away about the ideas, and like, I really want to help. Again, moving systems is going to take some time, and we need to do that. And what can we do right now that really starts moving the needle, helps young people feel like, okay, we're driving something here. And so again, because I work for Hennepin County, they want to move this forward. It's going to take some time. And again, I'm happy to push that lever, but I'm like, how do we really move this forward? Because this conversation, is inspiring to me. And I'm geared up. I'm ready to go. You can text me at midnight. I'll probably still be up. Like, I'm all in. Like, what do we do? And again, I feel like there's probably multiple layers, but like, I don't want to like to get the system change. Sorry, my daughter just walked in. I think for me, like, there's the system change, which I think a lot of us adults know takes some time and is frustrating, and it can turn out to have good things happen. And I think I just want to name Hennepin County has been working for the last 5 years on a transformational value called system of care, which really centers youth and family voice in the work. And also cultural responsiveness. So I think I just want to name, like, the county is really centered on this, but it might take a little bit of time. What can we do right now? Like, what are things, again, this is back to the youth. What are things that we can do right now? Like, I've got some projects going on right now that I would love to have all of you involved in if you want. But like, how do we also bring other youth in to the conversation in a very deliberate way, and also with financial compensation.
Mhm. What I would offer though to this conversation is, what can you do as adults? Speak to the tension of time. If someone has their foot on your neck, time is a whole different situation than if you can sit by and admire the problem and think about it from background. And that's the
Amen.
problem we have. There are people who are living every day with the foot on their neck several times a day who can't get it off. And then there are other people who say, this is going to take time. This is not about you, Mark. This is about a general situation at Hennepin County. You can help them increase their sense of urgency, put their money where their urgency is. So I say that about every institution, not just Hennepin County. Young people, come in here. I saw you, Sydney. Come in here, Janessa. Come on. Would you please let them in, Betsy?
Yeah.
Thank you. Come
Yeah,
on,
here
beauty.
I am. I think these conversations are so vital. Like, these conversations is how I got involved in this work. Youth Prize, involving more people into Youth Prize. I think about a strategy called the World Cafe, and if for those who don't know what that is just roundtable discussions that are basically guided conversations. And I think if we had roundtables of all ages, youth and people, and youth facilitating those conversations as well, like, I mean, even just listening like to Sydney and Emmett talk, they've already said so many things that have inspired me, and we can do that for each other. We can inspire each other by having conversation. And then, so I would say start there at least, and that's what we're doing. And so to continue this, and now this is also networking, right? Because now I can message Sydney and say, hey girl, I really like what you said about this. Let's talk about it more. And then we can come up with ideas, and those kinds of things, you know, kind of create like a butterfly effect. And so, Mark, I hear you on like feeling like a sense of what can I do right now? But I think also part of that is like recognizing what we are doing right now and the power in this and like expanding this out, right? And so yeah, that's where I would start.
Yeah, I would love.
Fantastic.
Oh,
Go ahead.
okay. I would love to just kind of recognize that first of all what Janessa said about just like recognizing what we have right now. Like having youth on this panel is something that is like they're recently youth are just now getting a seat at the table. And even still, I'm working for organizations right now, specifically one called Good Trouble, that is our main focus is to bring youth to the table because constantly decisions are being made about youth regarding their education, regarding their futures, regarding decisions that are being made about them, regarding laws, everything where they have absolutely no autonomy, no power, no decision making. I especially like what Mark said about that kind of anecdote that he gave about his daughter about what do you need today. That is so important. And I especially like that he said sometimes I needed her to ask me that question because sometimes you really do. You just really just need somebody to just reach out and be like, what do you need? How can I help you? How can I show up for you today? And I feel like in a lot of ways, a lot of spaces, don't the name of it is Good Trouble, goodtroublemn.org. They're an amazing organization. Check them out. But just like everything in as far as like youth is concerned, what asking them what do you need today? What do you need a hug, a handshake, or a high five? Do you need rent assistance? Do you need somebody to talk to? Do you need what do you need? Do you need to get into sports? Like there's so many ways that I feel like there are things that are happening right now that can be recognized, but also I love what Alyssa said about urgency. Like they're putting pressure on institutions in the same way that foots are on our necks every day is absolutely essential. I was up at Hennepin County Government Center because pressure needed to be put on elected officials to be like, hey, here we are, do your job. It's time. So I'll leave it at that.
I have to grab my modicum of professionalism and pull it back because I mean, Sydney had me ready to go. Sydney, next time you go, just hit me up. I'll be there. Emmett, what are you thinking about?
And to follow either one of those statements, that'd be hard. Like honestly, I'm right here with the both of you when it comes to getting like just putting your money where your mouth is, and that goes to all institutions. Like I'm a firm believer that greed is so rampant here in America. Like when you go outside of America, it just seems like generosity is everywhere abundantly. But for whatever reason, we have this white picket fence mentality. And so going back to like unlearning what we've been born into is extremely prevalent for me and how I try to approach adults when it comes to generosity. It's easy to slap a peanut butter and jelly on a loaf of bread and go to the encampments and do that. But how many of us are actually doing that, right? Like in numbers too. Like, I mean, that's a small example. I love what you said, Sydney, about the rental assistance. Like, if more people were asking me, like, "Hey, how you doing on rent this month?" Like, life would be a lot easier, especially as a youth, knowing that I have in my back pocket an abundance of resources to tap into if need be. And so, just being able to um, get that neighborly feel down and knit community together the way it should be, not this white picket fence individual mindset. Speaks volumes to the conversation we're having, and I hope that planted a seed in someone's heart.
Done. Janessa, what are you thinking about? We don't have that many questions. There's one asking about more culturally affirming strategies, but let's hear what's on your mind first. That's more important, I think, right now.
Sorry, could you repeat the question? Because I thought I started with it answering.
Excuse me, you did. I guess I'm reaching a point where after an hour, I need to get a
If you
drink
want
of
to hear
water.
me talk,
I would love to hear. Just keep flowing. Keep flowing.
Okay, no,
Um,
I do love what Emmett and Sydney said about like the sense of urgency too, like back to Mark's comment. Because while recognizing what we're doing, like it's very real that there needs to be more to be done. So I'll just kind of reiterate my point about like World Cafe discussions. I think that is like pretty simple to probably organize amongst groups of young people. There's so many existing organizations that are filled with young people and that have great ideas. And so like expand the discussion to more people because that's more ideas, more perspectives, more experiences. And yeah, I also have wrote down just kind of like some notes about like where my train of thought was going about all of the conversation we've been having. So I was thinking about, okay, so we have, you know, the relationship between older and younger people, the storytelling. Sydney kept saying stuff, I keep hearing like the weight that we're carrying. What is that? Like, what is that? Where does that come from? Because I mean, we can recognize the ways that it shows up in our personal lives, but when we're doing well in our personal lives, why is that not enough? And I think that goes back to generational trauma and looking at like what things are we carrying from past generations. And so understanding that weight and then moving forward to healing that weight. And I think that's work, and people should be paid to do work, especially healing our individual selves as people of color. That is community-based work, right? Because we are the community. So paying people to heal and to kind of release some of that weight, and then tearing down these institutions. And not that these things can't happen simultaneously, but that's just kind of where my train of thought went, of like, this is all interconnected. Like everything that we want to do, all the work that is being done is somehow interconnected. And so I don't know if that has anything to do with the question, but that was my thoughts.
Lead on, Janessa. Who cares? What about the question? No matter. You're dropping wisdom. It was perfectly fine. To the adults, I'm going to give you each just a minute or so. Lay down what you'd like us to remember before we go to the youth panelists to do a rapid fire. What do they think before we close it out? And you can go in any order you wish.
I'll jump in and just say thank you, thank you, thank you for being my teachers today. And I dropped my cell number in the chat, and I want y'all to come over and let's dream up a show at my gallery, and let's invite the world. Let's telecast it across the globe. We could do that tomorrow. Very serious about this. That's my life's work. And I also just want to say that the collective mindset is really important. And I hear Emmett loud and clear on that with the rental question. I can't tell you how many diapers I bought when I was a principal for my families who had littles and they needed the diapers. Like, what do you need? Just back to that question, what do you need? So thank you for sharing your wisdom with me, and thank you for allowing me to fail forward too, right? Like we're all in this together. So thank you.
I can jump in. Just many blessings and much gratitude to you all. Like she said, allowing me to be your student is just speaking volume to me, and I just want to continue to marvel in the moment. And narrative medicine, this was so we healed our ancestors in these last couple of hours. Like this was so therapeutic for me. I've learned so much from each one of you. So never, ever, ever stop sharing your lived experiences and your stories. And I will continue to do the same as well. So peace be with you guys always.
So I've dropped my cell phone and my email in the chat. Yeah, so I think, for me, again, I was just blown away by your wisdom, which again, I probably shouldn't be. But I'm really, ready to, this is complicated stuff, and I'm super excited. So, as I said, like, I'm ready to go tomorrow. Like, text me, email me, like, I'm on. I think you've got a lot of really great ideas, and and again, I think, we talked about, the harm of, right, the centering conversation was about, racial harm, and trauma, and it hits so many parts of our lives. And I think, I'm doing my best to educate individuals about that. But the more that you all want to, keep connecting with, and helping, like, I'll just say, so I do a lot of talking around, trauma. The library is interested in having conversations. The police department are now interested in having conversations. Been doing stuff with juvenile justice. Been doing, conversations with, well-being, which includes child protection. Like, so I think there's an opportunity, and for me, having any one of the three of you or all three of you be a part of that conversation would be magic. So I'm like, if you want to come and participate in a talk with me, I would love it. I'm not kidding.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Kamisha. Thank you, Yinga. We are so grateful for each of you. We're grateful you are our guests. Now, we want the speakers to leave us with a word. What do the three of you want us to remember? Because sometimes at the end of an event, we only remember the last thing somebody said. So what would the three of you like to lay down?
I'm gonna say stay radical, right? And if you're not radical, become radical. It's so easy to just be ordinary, and why live an easy life when you could live one that challenges you and forces you to grow? So become radical.
I think for me, I've taken to the last couple of years really like immersing myself in radicalism. So I'm with you on there. Like I used to be like, but no, there's no way we can tear down these institutions. Now I'm like, oh my God, burn them down. Who cares? So I think just understanding that we no longer, I think this really goes into what Kamisha was saying, because it was really just resonating with me, because we no longer have to water things that are not feeding us, period. And with that, I would really just like to destigmatize asking for help. A lot of that, what do you need? Like destigmatize therapy and counseling and meditation and community healing circles. Like destigmatize those things, because for a lot of people, for communities of color, everybody in my family is like, what? We don't go to therapy. We're Black. Like, we don't do that. And I'm like, yes, we do. Yes, we do go to therapy. You need it, and you need it. So we all need all of those things. So I think to really just destigmatizing healing is what's going to open up the doors to having a fruitful and prosperous future. To just let that go. Kind of like what Kamisha said, I'm not carrying anything. I'm not picking up anything that I don't have to carry anymore. Period.
I'll go ahead. So yeah, I guess I'm just thinking about what Sydney's saying, because she was the last person that spoke, and I'm thinking about how you said falling forward and destigmatizing these things. I think also along the same train of thought, like there's sometimes shame for asking for help. And I think young people can often feel that, especially like I'm a young person with no reference point. I come from poverty. That's my reference point. So I don't know when I'm doing things correctly. I often feel fearful of like, am I using my resources in the right way? Am I doing this correctly? I'm struggling financially. Am I making the same mistakes that my parents are making? And asking for help, sometimes I feel shame for that, because I'm an adult now. And so but I also had to humble myself and realize I am still a young person and it is okay to struggle in these ways and that I won't be in this place forever. And so, yeah, just kind of that's what Sydney's made me think of. And then also, I'm just new to this work in general. I've been with Youth Prize for like, this is my second year, I think. And so I'm just open to connecting with anybody and networking with people. I'd love to hear about what all of you do and seeing if there's any ways that my skill set can accompany that. And yeah, so I'll also throw my number in the chat. And if anybody wants to reach out to me and would be willing to talk to me about what you do, I really would appreciate that.
Emmett, Janessa, and Sydney, star, star, star. Shine on, beauties, and keep doing what you've been doing. And you know what? Because of the three of you, we are going to be all right. Thank you. I'm now turning it back to Natasha to give us a word and bring us home. And thank you, Youth Prize, for these amazing young people being in the same room. I feel gifted. Thank you. You all take care of yourselves.
Hi, y'all. Hi, folks. Thank you guys again all for coming. Let's just take another moment to thank our panelists for all of the wisdom that they had shared today. I feel like I learned so much throughout this session. Like, oh my goodness, the wisdom that was dropped upon us is just phenomenal. This is why we need to have more spaces like this. This is why we need to continue to truly put youth into places of leaderships and amplify their voices. Wow, what an impactful session today. Thank you guys all again for attending. There is a survey in the chat. Please, please, please fill it out. We would love to hear feedback from you guys as we plan future events. We will be back in the fall, so please stay tuned on more details for the topic. And again, thank you guys all again, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your afternoon. Bye, folks.